2 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murder of a mega star Keenan A.K. Forbes say they are prepared to be extradited back to South Africa, but on 4 conditions. The accused from Durban, Siyabonga Gezani Ndimande, as well as Melusi Dave Ndimande, say there were sureties about their safety and that the process is done within the confines of the law. The Ndimande brothers were arrested by members of the Royal eSwatini Police Service while hiding in Mbambane. They are due to appear in court this morning. Legal analyst from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic, Alton Hart, will be joining us for that discussion. But before we speak to Alton, let's quickly go to the Manzini Magistrates Court, where we speak to in eSwatini, where we speak to our reporter, Mweli Masilela. Mweli, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. What do you expect to happen in court this morning?
Aldrin, first to notice that previously when we were here in eSwatini, we spoke to the lawyer representing the 2 suspected, those 2 murder suspects, and what they indicated, the lawyer said that as much as they've received the papers in as far as the provisional arrest is concerned, but in the case of the extradition, they'll have to wait for comprehensive papers from the National Prosecuting Authority, and we're expecting that those papers will be available even days before, but still there is that wait. So we're expecting that today in court those papers will be presented because Sivasonke Ngwenya, who is representing Malusi, as well as Siyabonga, said that they will only be able to decide whether they are not opposing their application or not once they receive those papers. But from the side of the police here in eSwatini, they made it very clear that they'll work closely with their South African counterparts to ensure that the 2 are returned back home to answer to those charges that they'll be facing in South Africa. And of course, looking on the ground, well, people still saying that they are shocked about the fact that they were residing or living with people who are wanted for serious crimes in South Africa. Of course, describing the 2 as people who were very humble, and there was nothing that much suspicious except for the fact that they are saying that they were at the house where they were staying, that gates were always locked. So, and those parties, but we are expecting that later Aldrin will be able to see as to how the court processes unfold.
Thank you so much, Mweli Masilela, and remember that he will be back again right at around just after 7 o'clock to give us more analysis with regards to this story. Let's now bring in legal analyst from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic, Alton Hart. Alton, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. So after their arrest, the question was whether the police can just pursue, this is now the eSwatini Royal Police, shouldn't they just let go of the pair and just deport them because they are in the country illegally? Why go the extradition route? But some are saying that the extradition route should be the one that is followed because of the application that has been brought by the NPA.
Eldrin, irrespective if a person is illegally or with papers in a country, the moment that an arrest comes into play, there is this extradition laws, and because we are a signatory to the SADC protocol on extradition, we need to follow these procedures, and these procedures are specifically put in place for people who flee for safety. And I think the Ndimande brothers, they alleging that they fled South Africa for their safety based on taxi violence that was in the KZN area, and not per se to run away from these cases. So in such instances, then the authorities need to make sure that if a person is brought back to South Africa, that their safety is guaranteed, and also if they are arrested for a crime or alleged crime that's committed in a jurisdiction, that they will be then guaranteed their rights, as in our case in the Constitution Section 35, they will be treated fairly, they will get legal representation, and there will not be any violation of their human rights. Hence, they have to go the extradition route because they sit in a different country, and SAPS in South Africa does not have jurisdiction in eSwatini. So the border is the point where they can hand over the type of accused person or alleged accused persons, and they need to make sure that they don't overstep the jurisdiction, like we saw the issues that was raised in the Thabo Bester case to say that these guys were illegally or disguised extradition, where they said SAPS didn't have jurisdiction to arrest them there in Tanzania. They only have a jurisdiction here at Lanseria. So to avoid those type of legal arguments coming up later, hence they have to go through these routes and make sure everything is in place.
Yeah, I just quickly want to go back to an interview that our reporter Linda had on the day that the 5 accused in KwaZulu-Natal were appearing in court, and he spoke to a family member of 2 of the brothers, and he makes reference to that particular violence that you had spoken about now, and also why they're arguing that they want the local police's presence of their when they want to be escorted back to South Africa. However, though, they don't want to be handed over to SAPS. They instead want to be handed over to correctional facility officers because they fear abuse as well as victimization by the police. But just take a listen to what one of their relatives had to say to Linda.
A senior family member says their arrest in neighboring eSwatini may have saved their lives.
Sekube negameko eziningi ezifana nalesi ekuyisona sesizobophisa lezi ingane namhlanje eziningi kakhulu lapho silahlekelwe khona i-members zomndeni zibulawa, hayi ukuthi zibulawa abantu nje, zibulawa amaphoyisa akhona lapha eSouth Africa. Kusho ukuthi-ke ukuboshwa kwazo zitholakala sezingaphandle kweSouth Africa. Sibona thina kuyinto engcono kakhulu kunaloku buhlungu sesike sadlula kubona sifelwa izingane zalapha ekhaya ngesandla sengalo yomthetho walelizwe esithi elakithi esakhe kulona.
So, Alton, here again, we hear about the 2 brothers fleeing South Africa because of the violence that was playing out in KwaZulu-Natal, but making reference to the abuse from the police and the assault from the police, and also the fear that they could be killed. Is that reason enough to argue that the police should not be involved in their extradition once they are, if the NPA is successful in this application?
Even if they argue that, it's not going to happen, because in order for a person to be in a correctional facility, you first need to be arrested by the police, then appear before a court of law, and then a J7, what they call a J7 warrant, needs to be issued. That gives now correctional facilities the authority to now detain you and keep you in custody and bring you to court when you have to appear. So that is like they're asking now the entire law system in South Africa to be changed. So what needs to happen is, if they can maybe work in with the defense team to work in a guarantee to say that they will travel at such time that they make sure that in the morning they are in South Africa, they can appear in court on that very same morning, and then thereafter directly be committed to prison. They're not even going to bring bail applications. That can be maybe sort of half negotiated to say that the moment we arrive in South Africa, we will be brought before a court, and thereafter we can be sent to, but not to say, because sometimes the police will have you, if they arrest you, they have 48 hours in which to bring you before a court of law. And they can just say, now, we don't want that 48 hours, we want immediately, even if we arrive at 12 o'clock the afternoon somewhere in Durban, we can be brought before court because of our safety concerns before a magistrate. They will note the first appearances, our legal representatives, and then we are committed on a J7 to the Durban Central Prison. And thereafter, the prison authorities will then have control over them. But it is a concern that they can raise, and they can say, we fear for our safety, hence we were there, and we can make out an argument, but not to say that they should not. There must be a point where they are handed over to the South African police to effect the arrest, because they don't have jurisdiction in eSwatini to do the arrest there. They must do it in the South African territorial area.
Just a quick final one. One of the other conditions is that they want to be transported, when transported by local police, they want the presence of the eSwatini attorney. And speaking about the eSwatini attorney, does he have jurisdiction to actually do his work as a lawyer in South Africa? And I remember one of the cases in Zimbabwe where Advocate Dalimpofu was representing one of the applicants in an election case, and the courts there argued that unfortunately Dalimpofu cannot work in Zimbabwe as a lawyer. So what happens in this particular case?
If they want their lawyer from eSwatini, obviously you have to apply for a worker's visa permit. so that he can actually perform work here in South Africa. And then obviously he needs to also liaise with the Legal Practice Council of South Africa to say, I'm coming specifically to just oversee 1 to 3. I'm not going to appear in court. It's more or less maybe just the oversight to see where they get to the Durban Magistrates Court, where the South African counterpart, who's part of the defense team, then is going to do the appearances. But just to get that permit, because he's going to perform work, he's not coming to visit. So he must make sure that he has the necessary papers in order that permits him to perform certain services within South Africa, within the legal frame. Then he should be fine, and then the South African counterpart can just make sure that when it's the appearance in court, before they raise a technical issue to say that he doesn't have right of appearance in South African courts, he can then step in and make sure that the appearances happen and these guys are committed to the correctional facility. Then I don't foresee any problems that they should have. But the eSwatini lawyer coming in and observing what the police is doing can't just do it on a visitor's permit.
Thank you so much for your time. That's Alton Hart, legal analyst from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic.